Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video we're going to be reviewing Prixel for the PC. The game came out in 2018 of this year and it's by Prixel. So, a game about a stick man with a sword. Is it any good or not? Well, let's investigate, shall we? The game's story is, well, there isn't one. So instead, let me actually tell you a story. Originally, the developer of this game was never actually going to release this game. However, in the end, they gave it to their friends to test and they came back and said that they quite liked it and think that they should see if they can sell it on Steam or not. And here we are today. The game is now available on Steam. It still is in the early access stages, but it is available. And that's basically all the real story that there is to tell about this game. There's no quest for any dungeons, there's no princesses that need rescuing, there's no planets that are about to be destroyed, there's no real story to it. I don't know if down the line the developer is possibly going to add a story, but with this kind of game, honestly, I don't think it's that important. Character-wise, you play a stickman with a sword, and that's pretty much it. Because there's no real story to the actual game, there's no real character growth or character development, and yet again, you are just a character who is a stickman with a sword. I don't really think the developer really gave the character much thought when he was actually making the game. You basically play a character who is a blank slate, and no personality is put into them. I don't really think it was ever intended to either, because again, stickman with a sword. You do get different types of characters and enemies in the game, but they also come across as rather, I guess the only real word I could use would be hollow. That being said, however, I'm not exactly sure if the game did have a story and somehow the characters and enemies had some personality to them, if it would actually make a difference or not. Gameplay wise, this is where we can actually delve more deeply into the game. The gameplay is sort of based on the very old consoles and games such as Alex Kidd in Shinobi World and other platformers like that, which really were quite difficult and very unforgiving and quite hard. This game itself and its gameplay is quite hard and is very unforgiving. You can be doing well in some part of the level, and you think you're doing quite well, and you think you're going to get quite far. However, you then jump 1 inch and you're dead, and you have to start all over again from the beginning. If you're lucky enough and you've managed to hit a checkpoint, that's great. Die again, and you have to start right back from the very beginning again. It's very unfair and a very punishing game, and while I know that this may put a lot of people off, it may actually make quite a few people interested. You see, I'm from the era of the Master System, and I had a Master System, and a lot of games back then were quite hard, especially compared to now. Back then, there were no save points, and back then there were no memory cards, so you couldn't save your game. There were no checkpoints, nothing like that at all. It was very hard. If you got all the way to the final level and you died, that was it. You had to start right back from the beginning again. And that's pretty much what this game is like. It is hard, it is cruel, and it is difficult. But it is a challenge. Graphics wise, the game's graphics are pretty much what you see is what you get. Literally, what you see is what you get. The game looks like this, and it kind of looks like this because, as the developer has said before, this was originally a pet project of theirs, and it was also something that was never originally going to be released in the first place. I think that the game was basically being used for the developer to test on and to work on what they could build upon. So I wasn't ever really expecting this game, considering from a first time developer, to come out on something like the Unreal Engine, for example. Credit where credit is due, however, the developer has done a very good job, especially if this is their first time game that they've ever worked on. I know I myself could never ever make anything as good as this, so credit the developer on making something like this from scratch. And while we're also talking about the graphics, if there's anyone looking at the game and thinking, I don't like the look of this, it just looks like a crappy Android game, just remember, don't judge a book by its cover. This game is actually quite good. Don't let the graphics fool you. It's the challenge which is the appeal of this game. Environment wise, the game is very, very hard. The developer made this game with a challenge in mind, and a challenge in mind is what you have. You can be walking along thinking you're absolutely fine, and then all of a sudden a giant boulder can come and squash you. Or you can be thinking, I'm pretty close to the checkpoint, I'm going to be fine, and then the whole floor collapses and you fall in lava, and it's right back to the first level again. The developer also did put lots of hidden areas and locations in the game, because he says that the appeal of this game is meant to be about speedrunning. However, finding these hidden locations is really hard, and even when you think that you've actually found one, it can turn out most of the time that you actually haven't. What you've actually found is you've found a wall and nowhere else to go. And the only thing that you can do is basically fall and land on spikes and die and go right back to the beginning again. The environment is hard, the environment is uncaring, and it is unforgiving. It is harsh. When playing this game, it really did remind me of back to my childhood when I played those old Master System games which made me practically pull my hair out. Well, if you're wondering about possibly purchasing this game, and wondering if it's worth the asking price that Steam's asking, I would have to say yes and no. The asking price for this game I feel is a smidge higher than it should be, and I'm not sure if it was the developer who chose to put it at this price or if it was Steam themselves. But I do feel like the asking price is a little higher than it actually should be for what you're getting from this game. Yes, the game still is in early access mode, but it also is very, very hard, and the developer claims he wants to make it even harder. Just doing this video, I found it difficult to try and even get to level 2, so I can't imagine how anyone could get any real enjoyment out of this game if it was made harder, and people couldn't even get past level 1. It is a good game, it is very hard, it really did remind me of my childhood when I had a Master System 1, and when I used to play all those really hard Master System games, but being so angry and wound up about trying to do a game, dying constantly, and I mean constantly, isn't going to appeal to a lot of people. It is a game that I feel will be hit and miss, because some people will like it because it's a challenge and it is really hard, whereas other people are used to being mollycoddled, and they're used to checkpoints everywhere, and save points, and basically being overpowered. So some people who don't like a challenge won't really like this game. If you do like a challenge, however, and I mean a real challenge, I would recommend this game to you. If you don't like a challenge, it's your own fault if you're pulling your own hair out. Well, that's it for this review guys, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and please subscribe.